There are insane losses going on in the housing market in Canada, which we're going to get into in this video, and why those losses are going to absolutely continue here. So let's get into this post on X from Shazzy. Highly recommend that you follow him on X. And basically it shows just some of the insane losses that we're seeing every single week in this housing bubble. And we're going to get into why these are going to get a lot worse, considering one fundamental that is slipping away from investors. So if you look into it here, you got a 25% loss on the left. You've got another 25% loss over here. This one is a 35% loss, power of sale in Bowmanville. And then you've got this loss here, which is around 25% as well. And they are huge dollar values when you look at it, apart from the 35% loss. And then you have to factor in inflation. Obviously, all of these were purchased in 2022. And now I want to get into that fundamental that is going to crush investors, and already is crushing investors into the housing market, is rents are declining. And the cost of everything else, that's not declining at all. So they're in a terrible situation, and trying to sell in this environment is a recipe for disaster, as we're seeing. So average asking rents across Canada fell year over year for the fifth consecutive month in February to $2,088 per month. A monthly report by rentals.ca and Urban Nation, which analyzes listings in the former's network, says rents declined by 4.8% last month, marking the largest decrease since April 2021. So that's a huge decrease, and this is something that I've been saying for a long time, as many of you know on this channel, that rents will eventually come back down, and that will hurt investors. And that's exactly what we're seeing happen right now, because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul when rents are going up and incomes aren't going up. Again, you're just going to see rubber meet the road, and that's exactly what we're seeing happen. They do outline, though, that average rents in Canada are still up 5.2% higher than 2 years earlier and 16.9% higher than pre-pandemic levels. But another thing that I want to highlight is if you actually look at the cumulative CPI growth for all of the CPI growth since 2019 to where we are right now, it's 23.9%, meaning that even in the CPI terms, rents in real terms have actually fell in Canada. And that is one thing that people don't realize. And if you actually put it into perspective of real inflation, oh my God, like rents have absolutely tanked in real terms. So investors have just got absolutely wiped out by inflation, and probably most of them don't even realize it. And then I also want to show you this, because it just goes to show, I think a lot of people are oblivious to what's going on in the market right now. So mortgage too high, thinking of selling and traveling the world. I bought a condo in 2022, so we know how that goes, in Toronto. The mortgage is too high for me, and I'm tired of having to pour all of my income into a mortgage without being able to save anything or travel as much as I want. It has become a burden for me. I'm at the point in my life where I'd like to travel before settling down and having kids. I would love to sell the condo, but I'm afraid I would have to sell at a loss and losing money, or that I would regret my decision later when condo prices go higher. What would you do if you were in my shoes? So again, you've got people going online about this, trying to ask for advice about what they're going to do in their situation. And obviously with the condo market right now, that's if you can sell it, buddy. I mean, seriously, the condo market is incredibly illiquid, so likely you would have to sell it at a loss. And it's not really a question of whether prices are going to go up later. It's how stable is your job and financial situation. Are you going to be able to carry this thing if the renter stops paying? I'm not sure if they're living in it or they're renting it out. So it's a very precarious situation right now, especially since this person said they're pouring all their money into it, which does not sound like a good thing. And then on the backdrop of the terrible economy that we have already, and I also want to point this out as well, what Doug Ford said, because it is complete lies.
The economy right now, I'm concerned about it. And if a recession does happen, it's a self-made recession by one person. And
No, it's not. That's the thing. We know on this channel that Canada has been in a recession since 2022. If you want to take out population growth, you know that right away, and it's been in a deep recession. And most people on this channel know this, but politicians and central planners are also going to spin this to blame it on Trump and the tariffs. Now, there is a component to this that is going to make the economy way worse. It's also going to plunge the US economy into recession. And of course, we would be in a recession anyway with all the tariffs and the chaotic situation that's going on right now if we didn't have the terrible economic backdrop that we already had. But just the fact that politicians want to basically blame it on the tariffs is getting really annoying now, because obviously on this channel we know exactly what's going on. So McClem warns there will be no bounce back from the Canadian economy in a trade war with the US, and that's exactly what's happening. Obviously this is an older speech that he did, but that's exactly what's happening. And you have to look at their previous statements because they often amend it to suit public opinion of what people want to hear and see. You see that with Mark Carney, who he was saying the economy was weak, and now he's trying to say the economy is strong, and that's just because it's what people want to hear. But you've got to tell people the truth, not what they want to hear. Be a realist. We need some politicians in charge who are actually realists instead of just pandering to what people want to hear, because it is the weakest thing that a person can do, especially a politician, is not be truthful and honest, and none of them are. So anyway, Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem warns the Canadian economy will not be able to bounce back from a protracted trade war with the United States, as the impact from the trade disruptions will be structural in nature. And think about it, it goes two ways in a trade war, obviously, but one thing that's going to happen is it's going to plunge the US economy into recession. It was likely heading there anyway. The yield curve inverted there, so it was like a 99.9% chance that the US economy was heading into a recession anyway. So the tariffs, yeah, they're going to obviously compound the effect of that recession. You're obviously going to have all the deleveraging and financial crises that will inevitably turn up because of all these tariffs and because of people's positioning in financial markets. But if you think about it, it's just adding another component, because the US is Canada's biggest customer, and if they're going into recession, they need less of Canada's goods regardless of the tariffs. That's just the way it works. It especially impacts provinces like Alberta that rely heavily on the oil and gas sector. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. In the pandemic, we had a steep recession followed by a rapid recovery as the economy reopened. That is not really how it worked, was it? It's basically a rapid recovery because of all the government stimulus that artificially created massive distortions in the economy, and now we're going to obviously pay the piper for this, because it was just a load of can kicking down the road, and if you don't just put more and more money into this thing, then eventually the whole thing's going to implode, and that's exactly what's happening right now. So it's very interesting. McClem obviously doesn't have a clue what he's talking about here, and obviously he cut rates last week, but he really doesn't have a clue what's going on. The economy's strong, it's weak, it's strong, it's weak. It's the same as Mark Carney, and you've also got other people like Doug Ford who are saying, hey, the economy was strong before this. If there's a recession, it's just because of Trump and these tariffs, all because of Trump. No, there was a recession already because of all the government distortions. And now I want to play a clip actually from Red Pill Rick on X. Follow him.
There's no bounce back. If you introduce tariffs, the economy works less efficiently. We don't get those economies of scale. Businesses can't grow their businesses by growing their exports to the United States. So they're going to invest less. There's going to be less production. Incomes will be lower in Canada. And unless we introduce a new structural shock, some structural reform that boosts our potential output, but boost supply, there's no bounce back. So,
and what you've got to think about what the Bank of Canada is saying there is he's basically alluding to a massive government stimulus package. And they think that government stimulus, if put in the right area of the economy, will really help, and it will just be booming, just like what's happening with Germany right now. Like, this is just going to be amazing. The economy's suddenly going to rip. Like, Germany's no longer in recession. recession now because they're doing this stimulus program. It's going to be amazing. But it really doesn't work like that. And there's so much inefficiencies in what the government does, and there's so much corruption that a lot of that money just gets swindled away. And if you look at all the US aid uncoverings and even the things that people like Moose on the Loose have mentioned about what's happening about some of the foreign aid programs that Canada has done, you can just see how money is just being laundered left, right, and center out of the country through these aid programs, and it needs to be addressed. And that is one thing I'll definitely agree that was good about Doge and Trump. There are many things they do I don't agree with, but that was one thing they did that was actually very good. And that's the thing. People are just like, oh no, I hate everything that guy does. I hate that guy. And they're just unable to think critically. They're unable to not have a bias about a certain person or a certain thing. They just have to be polarized one way or the other. It's going to destroy society. And you can clearly see that the US is in the end stages of an empire collapse, and that could last another 30, 40 years. But that's what's causing the rise of populism, polarization, all these different things. You only have to study history and you'll realize that these things repeat time and time again, and it's never a good thing. So anyway, guys, really want to thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend you check out this video here. If you're looking for a VPN and also want to protect your privacy, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. Also helps out the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take